Welcome aboard, everyone. Looking at you all, you are the absolute next generation of offshore personnel, and you're stepping into what is literally one of the most dynamic, complex, and frankly, unforgiving environments on Earth. I'm here to guide you through this explainer on offshore lifting operations. Now, you might think your absolute greatest asset out here on the deck is muscle, or maybe all that heavy steel machinery, but I'm here to tell you, actually to promise you, that in offshore lifting, proper preparation and crystal clear communication are your ultimate survival tools. They are the shield that protects you. To really put this into perspective, I want to pose a pretty high-stakes question to all of you right out of the gate. Think about the massive cranes out there, the incredibly deep waters, those intensely heavy loads. What do you honestly think is the absolute main cause of accidents in marine lifting operations? Well, the answer is communication failures. It's not a snapped wire rope. It's not underestimating the weight of a load. It is, plain and simple, the breakdown of human communication. The single biggest threat out here is a misunderstood command or a radio that suddenly goes silent.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be running through Toolbox Talk Basics, radio channels and call signs, the supervisor role and control, verifying commands, simultaneous operations, and we'll wrap up with ROV and load transfers.
Section 1. Toolbox Talk Basics. Let's talk about building your ultimate armor.
So a Toolbox Talk is a mandatory pre-shift review of the risk assessment and the lift plan. Think of this as the exact moment where we forge our shield. By gathering literally everyone involved to exchange safety info, we agree on the rules of engagement. This actively prevents those catastrophic communication breakdowns way before anyone even thinks about touching a crane control.
As we go through this explainer, I need you to mentally flag these critical steps because they have to happen at every single briefing. First up, every single affected person must be present. No exceptions. Second, we establish physical barriers and audible warnings. Third, and actually this one catches a lot of folks off guard, we check for identical names among the crew. Seriously, if we have two Johns on the same radio channel, that is a huge hazard. And step 4, we confirm a common working language so everyone is absolutely fluent during the lift.
Moving to Section 2, radio channels and call signs. Let's get our grid set up.
You really need to understand the why behind the what when it comes to our gear. We don't just pick dedicated channels for privacy. We do it to prevent totally deadly crosstalk and distractions from nearby ships or other operations. You absolutely must test your radios at the very start of your shift. And you will always plan a secondary backup method. Whether that's a hardwired system or just a pre-agreed set of hand signals, you need a plan B. Let's look at a really practical scenario regarding those identical names we just talked about. If you get on an open radio loop and simply yell, "Alex, lower the load," you're creating a massive margin for human error. I mean, which Alex? The one on the main deck? The one up on the secondary crane? The right way, the only way, is using specific call signs. You say, "Crane 1, this is deck 2, lower the load."
Section 3. The supervisor role and control. This is all about the chain of command.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how something as simple as visual management can save lives in a chaotic environment. The lift supervisor absolutely must be easily identifiable. We're talking distinctive clothing, a bright high-vis vest, or a totally different colored helmet. This guarantees that everyone on that deck knows exactly who is calling the shots, because out here, there's only ever one person in charge of a lift at any given time.
But hey, what happens when that supervisor loses line of sight with the load? It happens, right? Well, that requires a very careful, deliberate handover process. If the load swings out of view, the primary deck supervisor has to formally and explicitly hand over control. This might be to a secondary supervisor, or in some pre-planned cases, directly to the crane operator using CCTV monitors. And this handover, it must be loudly and verbally confirmed over the radio. No assumptions allowed.
Section 4. Verifying commands. These are our rules of engagement on the mic. So the crucial point here is a concept called positive acknowledgement. If the supervisor says, "lower 2 meters," the crane operator never, and I mean never, just replies with "okay" or "copy." Instead, they have to echo the exact command back to confirm total understanding. They say, "lowering by 2 meters now." This completely eliminates any dangerous ambiguity. Listen, I really need to hammer home this golden rule for blind lifts, which is when the crane operator physically cannot see the load, the supervisor's radio transmissions must be continuous. We're talking no more than 10 to 15 seconds apart. If there is ever an unexpected silence, If that 15 seconds ticks by without a single word, the absolute default action for the crane operator is to stop the lift immediately. Silence equals stop. Period.
Section 5. SimOps. That stands for Simultaneous Operations. Consider SimOps the boss fight of offshore lifting. When you've got multiple teams working in the exact same area, maybe one is drilling, one is lifting, another is doing maintenance, it dramatically multiplies the risk of a miscommunication disaster. SimOps require flawless discipline. There is absolute zero tolerance for cross-department radio interference, and you have to stick strictly to the playbook you all agreed on during the toolbox talk.
Section 6. ROV and load transfers. Let's look at some advanced scenarios.
Once we pass a load down through the splash zone and into the subsea environment, direct human line of sight is completely gone. At this point, the dive control supervisor takes the reins. Because the entire lifting operation is now fully blind, relying entirely on video feeds and sonar, that continuous radio contact we talked about becomes a literal lifeline. And this brilliantly illustrates the unique challenge of ROV control. You see, ROV operators and dive control teams share hardwired open microphone lines. That means any background noise, or even just casual chatter, gets broadcast to everyone on the loop. It demands incredibly strict professional radio standards to avoid fatal distractions. Basically, only say exactly what needs to be said.
Now, another massive risk area is transferring a load between a moving ship and a stationary platform. You're dealing with two entirely separate entities, which often means two totally different company cultures. The danger here is so high that an agreed common language, usually English as the International Maritime Standard, must be locked in during the planning stage. And of course, you absolutely need a perfectly matched set of standardized hand signals as your fail-safe backup.
Let's pull back and see how this all builds together. When you look at your entire working world out here, from the relative calm of the quayside all the way to the pitching, weather-beaten deck of a ship at sea, constant vigilance is required everywhere. The machinery might do the heavy lifting, sure, but your communication protocols are the only thing actually keeping the crew alive and safe. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, vital thought before you head out onto that deck. Close your eyes for a second and imagine 100 tons of steel suspended in the air. What happens to your lift if the radio suddenly goes silent right now? The answer must instantly be stop. Your safety and the safety of every single person working next to you relies entirely on your constant, disciplined readiness to communicate. Stay sharp out there and watch each other's backs.